네, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the day 2 of the International Disaster Resilience Forum, Leaders Forum Incheon 2025. I am Min Hwa Kim, your MC today. And first of all, I'd like to convey my sincere gratitude to everyone for joining us. Okay.
Finally, we welcome Dr. Esam Halawani, Director of the Division Support Center at Madinah Region Development Authority in Saudi Arabia. Dr. Halawani will share Madinah city's resilience journey, presenting their innovative system of systems approach and comprehensive resilience assessment. His presentation will demonstrate how evidence-based analysis can inform strategic planning aligned with the national development goals. Please join me in warmly welcoming Dr. Halawani.
Thank you. Alrighty, greetings everyone, good morning. I'm Esam Halawani. I'm the Director of Decision Support Center of Madinah Regional Development Authority. And if you are wondering what's a regional authority, it is basically in charge of planning and policy making, where the municipality is in charge of execution. And this put us into a question mark of governance. How do we manage that? Today, I'll be sharing with you Al-Madinah City journey towards becoming a resilience hub. Currently, Al-Madinah City is a Class C MCR 2030, and we are moving forward with this agenda. Similar to all nations, Saudi Arabia has faced natural disasters, negatively impacting its economy and the well-being of its population. Saudi Arabia's commitment to climate change was demonstrated starting 2016 in the Paris Accord, and its effort and focus has translated into its national urban strategy, and it has reached to the Saudi building codes. Moreover, this agenda has been stressed by the 6 Arab Region Platform of the Disaster Risk Reduction, which took place in Kuwait in February 2025. Mind you, according to the IPCC reports, the GCC countries are going to heat up 30% faster than the rest of the countries in the Northern Hemisphere. This level of urgency has called for attention, and Madinah City and the regional authority have basically established a decision support center that acts as an advocate for city resilience and the DRR agenda at a city level, regional level, also at a national level. Now, there is a lot to go through. I will try to just share with you a slice of a case that we've been working on and take you through a journey where we move from evidence-based analysis all the way to policy. And policy for us is a tactical item in the strategic planning and a strategic implementation. That's why it's very important for you and for me to share with you the complexity in that process. It's easy to say, but it's very difficult to achieve. Now, the mandate of the Decision Support Center was established is to enable the leadership move away from emotional-based decision-making into more science-based decision-making. And for that reason, we are mandated to produce scientific research to inform decision-making at a regional level and also at a national level. This basically compelled us to work with more than 135 stakeholders at a regional level and also national and global level in order to rationalize the data and ask the right questions and literally open Pandora's box. And basically, the type of research that we focus on, can be classified into 2 simplistically. One is the infrastructure resilience analysis and the socioeconomic impact analysis for the time being. And this involves all sorts of sciences, moving from the climatology, infrastructure, civil engineering, geology, climatology, seismology, and the list goes on. The purpose here is not to focus on the specialization, but focus on answering the question, what is the gap? How can we address the gap? And eventually, how can we reach to a treatment plan that is cost-effective and improves the city's resilience? And for that, we start our journey. Now, this may be a little bit simplistic, but our methodology lies within 3 levels of complexity. The first level focus on a systems of systems perspective, where we basically investigate nodes of systems and their subsystems in order to understand the fragility inherent or exposed to that will reach to the gap and answer the research question that we are addressing. For example, if we're looking at water system management fragilities, we start establishing a web that consists of hundreds of nodes, okay, to understand the variables and the impact of each node on its other nodes and interrelation to the other nodes. And then we create our own control environment where we can simulate and we can see the future. This type of methodology basically allows us to address cross-organizational risks, consumer behavioral risks, and associated policy risks, infrastructure resilience analysis, and also climate change and environmental impact, assessing and linking all of those and linking it to the SDGs and create futuristic scenario planning. Now, systems of systems thinking, that's the first level of complexity. The second level of complexity is basically the external pressures, which basically is materialized into climate change, scarcity of natural resources, and also energy consumption. And all of that is to honor Saudi Arabia's commitment to achieve net zero carbon footprint by 2060. We have to think of this kind of condition as we are planning, as we're collecting data, and later on as we are drafting policies. In a nutshell, this may be chaotic. Data is all over the place. How do we synthesize all of this type of data-based knowledge and in order for us to be able to design the right policies and treatment plans? So we resort to our second methodology. We refer to it as the balanced view. It consists of 4 lenses: the human, the built or the infrastructure, the natural, representing the environment, and virtual will represent the policy. So for example, if we are investigating a certain strategic issue or assessing a strategic initiative, we collect data, process data, cleanse, organize, and then investigate and report using these 4 lenses. In this way, we have found out that you don't have to invest $50 billion worth of investment to improve the infrastructure for the water management system, for example. Perhaps a little bit more focus needs to be done at the human side to build awareness, to regulate, and to give the right social nudge to the society to reduce that demand density on the infrastructure. Perhaps it's a combination of all. And that is what I'm going to take you through very quickly. I will go to these slides very quickly to give more time for the last slide, which I'll be addressing more. Now, the case that we're looking at, or the report, is a Madinah Resilience Report, which we published in November 2024, in order to build awareness and build the knowledge and the science-based advice that associates risks and disaster risk reduction and provide the essential knowledge for regional planning and strategic planning from the urban side. And that will eventually materialize and improve the quality of life of residents and 30 million visitors by 2030. And that is our critical point here. Our report opened up Pandora's box and exposed us to see so much challenges and so much opportunities to improve them. Now, I will not go through them one by one because that will be time consuming, but I'll give you the QR code for the report at the end. I'll focus on the 3 major concerns that we found out using this methodology. Major concern number one, natural hazards. Under natural hazards, the heat waves. Madinah recorded 5th in Saudi Arabia, recording 59.5 heat stress days throughout the year. Understanding that level of impact as an external pressure will definitely allow us to understand the demand density on services, energy consumption and water consumption, assessing the supply chain, whether it's cold or dry, the impact on healthcare, the quality of life, livability, transportation and mobility, and certainly tourism. It tells you a story. That's why we have to focus on that major concern. Major concern number two, flood hazards. Al-Madinah city is shredded by 5 valleys that are occasionally flooding the city throughout the year. Now, we have utilized our 30 years worth of historical data of flood data and used it to simulate the areas that are most exposed to risk. And we've mapped them geospatially and identified which neighborhoods are more exposed to risks and which are most vulnerable. This allowed us to see something else, and that is based on historical data. We've also, major concern number 3, the urban density. We've utilized our intimate knowledge of the urban density of the city, and for some reason we started to see a pattern, but the pattern here is different. We've classified the city into 4 zones. Each zones have a different characteristic, different demographic, different social structure, different social fabric and cohesion, different economic dynamics. So that raised so many questions in order to address the fragilities within each zone. So on top of that, we've added more data. Economic resilience data, social resilience data, infrastructure, environmental resilience data, and we've designed Madinah City Resilience Index, through which we can quantify the resilience score at a neighborhood level. And mind you, and I have to be honest, the formula was 30 variables, but because of missing data, incomplete data sets, which all of us are suffering from, we had to publish it with only these variables. And we've used the formula, and we've managed to actually create a radar map that you see here before you, zone 1, 2, 3, and 4, and each one of them have different disparities and different scores. Why is this important? Because when the time comes for designing a city resilience strategy, we know that one size does not fit all. And that is very important for us to localize the disaster risk reduction concepts at a neighborhood level. This is the slide that I was trying to tell you. Now we talked the talk, now let's walk the walk. This is the 4 lenses that I was trying to explain to you. We've used the Madinah Resilience Report to have a balanced look at the city resilience at a neighborhood level. I will just quickly go through them. I will not go through them one by one. For example, if you look at the built domain, we've got the risk register. We've realized that the business continuity risk registers do not link to disaster risk reduction. What the business continuity looks at risk from an organizational boundary does not care about what's beyond. So the link between the city resilience agenda does not filter to the risk register. That's a problem. And that impacted the ability of organizations to factor in disaster risk reduction concepts within their master plans. And prioritizing water management systems, and as I said, 5 valleys shredding through the city of Madinah gave room to nature-based solutions that we need to focus on. And that is an area of improvement that it needs to be flashed, but it has to be classified. So this one belongs to the infrastructure domain. For the policy and the virtual and the policy domain, addressing climate change and mitigation. Still, there are some organizations and some stakeholders trying to look away, shy away, perhaps maybe hoping that climate change will disappear and try not to look at it, it might go away. And that is a problem. We've got also plans to manage the exposure from flood risks. Now, you remember the map, the geospatial map, zone 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Zone 1 and 2 represent the old neighborhood, 3 and 4 represents the new neighborhoods. So you've got different challenges here. When it comes to policy making, make sure that the old neighborhoods are the different plan than the sprawls. And that gave us the argument, oh, we're moving away from the 15-minute city to something else. So when the time comes for strategy and policy making, it has to be localized at a neighborhood level. Otherwise, it will be a problem. We also discovered that one of the major areas of improvement that I'm sure all government organizations are suffering from is the silo-based operation. Every organization doesn't want to share data, which is the elephant in the room. They like to operate separately. They like to not share their plans with the attempt to move faster, but not further. And that is a major problem when it comes to policy and planning. And this basically can be translated into master plans that are single-focused or are not balanced. And this is a huge area of improvement. One of the areas of when it comes to policy is the financing policy. Where did this came from? Financing policy for risk and reduction projects. In Saudi Arabia, we're moving away. We have a centralized system, but a decentralized financing. So we have a problem with financing. Policies must be developed and designed in order to support cities and regions when it comes to financial support. Moving along to the nature domain, a lot of organizations trying to trump their way out of climate change. Scoring the 5th hottest city in Saudi Arabia need to be factored into master planning and strategic planning for all stakeholders. Also, the city's topography, as I said, the distance from the Red Sea where water is desalinated and pumped up 625 meters to a plateau, this is not sustainable. And this tells us a story where aquifer depletion is a major issue in Madinah city. It's over-reliant on underground water, and depletion is a problem. And you know what happens when you deplete aquifers, all the disasters comes with it. For the human element, now we've got some awareness and social nudging to be invested in, and we need to activate the community-based risk management. But we speak about the concept, but now we know which neighborhood needs what type of policy and awareness plan to improve its resilience, because we know their fragility. Now this makes absolute sense. We know we can start from day one. Consumer behavior in general needs to be optimized. Again, that part does not mean that we need to build more or build bigger when it comes to infrastructure. No, we need to regulate consumption. And mind you, here we're only focusing on residents. We're not talking about 30 million visitors having different consumer behaviors coming from different nations, water rich, water poor, different kind of consumption behaviors. We need to host them and we need to make sure their visit is enriched. So that's a different kind of dilemma. The last point that we found out when it comes to the human element is farming behavior. Traditional farming, vertical farming, this concept was addressed. And how did that came into the radar? Because farming requires water consumption, stresses the water management system, so we can basically try to socially nudge the farming and the farmers to move away from traditional farming all the way to vertical farming. And not to mention strategic crops. We are famous for the palm trees. They have the highest K value. They have the highest water consumption. Preserving that brand while making sure to address food security is a different issue. And this is the kind of analysis that move towards policy making with the purpose of a balanced study, a balanced data collection, research, science publications, outreach to policy making. But it has to be balanced. Not every policy or not every strategic initiative that is economically good for the nation is good for society, is good for the environment, and certainly sustainable. With that, ladies and gentlemen, prepare your phones. I'll be sharing with you the QR code for Al Madinah Resilience Report. Look for the English version QR code, and if you're interested, the Arabic version on the right side. Did we get it?
Yeah.
Okay. With that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I'll be here today and tomorrow. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to share my thoughts, and I apologize if I took too much time. Cheers.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Halawani, for your enthusiastic and very passionate presentation on Al Madinah's holistic approach to urban resilience. Your system of systems methodology and evidence-based policy recommendations provide an excellent model for integrated resilient planning. Okay, we have heard 5 exceptional presentations that collectively demonstrate the power and necessity of collaborative governance in disaster risk reduction. Before we open the floor for questions and any discussion, let me just briefly recap key themes that have emerged during this session. First of all, the critical importance of citizen participation in risk identification and policy development. I think both Dr. Yeon and Dr. Yi emphasize how community involvement reveals risks and vulnerabilities that technical assessment alone cannot capture. Second of all, the need for multi-sectoral collaboration, from Dr. Shin's public-private partnerships in Boryang to Halawani's cross-sectoral approach in Al Madinah. Successful resilience requires breaking down traditional silos. Thirdly, the foundational role of data and evidence. Professor Ono's presentation reminded us that effective collaboration must be built upon reliable, standardized information systems that enable informed decision-making. Last but least, the balance between innovation and community engagement. While technology offers powerful tools for risk monitoring and response, true resilience emerges from empowered, prepared communities working in partnership with various institutions and public bodies. Now I invite questions from our audience. If anyone has got a question or things to address, please raise your hand. Okay. I see so many hands in the air.
Hi, I really enjoyed talk from Saudi Arabia and Japan and Korean case too. You guys talk about the community engagement, like the piece, during your presentation, but I'd like to know a little more about how community really engage and contribute in this process.
All right. When you look at communities, it's either they're part of the network or disconnected from the network. Now, evaluating those neighborhoods specifically based on their fragilities that we have assessed through the system can give us advice on what is the best method to communicate, to educate, to bridge the gaps, and then also quantify. And all of this information, imagine it as a system. You've got this kind of data being, let's say, fed back into a unified system, and you understand exactly what is being done where and what are the KPIs for each community. Now, this requires a bit of a leadership role. That's why we empower the leadership at a community-based, maybe a local ambassador or someone to be nominated to lead that agenda specifically on top of other types of agenda. The reason here is we need to move away from, with all due respect, blaming the top government for looking after everything, everywhere, and all time. We need to empower communities to look after themselves. But we need to start bottom up when it comes to disaster. That will alleviate and reduce the stress on infrastructure and also improve the response time when it comes to disasters.
Basically, the question was, what tools are you using to identify the risks at the community level?
Sorry, come again?
What tools are you using to identify risks at the community level?
Okay. What kind of tools you could use at the community level? You? How about, yeah, would you like to respond?
Yes, when it comes to, if I understand you correctly, how could we start and where do we start? I mean, Madinah's case, it was kind of trivial because we had, and we still have, a state-of-the-art urban observatory that basically operate on global standards. So we've built it on WCCD standards and MCR 2030 standards. Our urban observatory is triple crowned and has lately got the 37123 for the ESG as well. So start there, where the Urban Observatory has a very clear framework and indicators through which data can be collected and can be auditable. And this will generate frequent indicators that you can monitor through time. And that is very important. The second layer that we have a state-of-the-art geospatial information center. Combining these two, you can easily map and project statistical data geospatially, and then you'll be able to tell the story. So the DSC comes after that. Why certain points are connected, why certain indicators are low here and high there. And all of those can help you tell the story. And I think that's a good framework to start.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the lady behind you. Please do make it short.
For Mr. Halawani, influencing DRR policies to be in place is about creating political will, technical justifications, and community demand. So how did you engage policymakers in your country strategically to push DRR agenda? Did you look at policy windows after a disaster? What is is it a top-down or bottom-line approach? Case studies or economic arguments such as $1 to 4 to 7 savings?
Hey, Dr. Halawani?
Okay, quickly, when it comes to really understanding the community, it's data and evidence-based. We have an intensive database for the demographics, so we can actually study the population and their demographics and their age groups and all the assorted attributes. And we can have a very clear assessment of the gaps or potential exposure to risk. And that fed into our Madinah City Resilience Index. This is how we classified geospatially. So that's the first question. The second question, when it comes to policy, is a bit tricky because the DRR agenda in Saudi Arabia is fragmented. Part with the municipality, part with the fire brigade, which focus more on the humanitarian aspects, and part of which lies within Madinah Regional Authority. Now, because we're policymakers, puts us in front and at the shooting ground. We need to design evidence-based studies and projects with a balanced treatment plan and raise it up to the leaders and in the capital, and specifically with the National Risk Council, where real risks, real issues can be addressed, and then once we have their blessings, it goes top down.
Okay, I urge you to sort of carry on this conversation with her during the break. Okay, well, I will stop there. And then thank you once again for excellent speakers and the participants in the floor. Thank you so much. And this concludes session 4. Thank you very much. Okay. And
네,
the
감사합니다.
last announcement, we'll have to pause for our memory. So we'll have a taking picture session. Taking photo.
네, 감사합니다. 네, 여러분 사진 찍으시는데 다시 한번 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. 네, 사진 찍으시고요. 네, 네 너무나 또 멋진 오전부터 세션을 굉장히 유용한 또 토론으로 이끌어 주셨습니다. 대단히 감사하다는 말씀을 드리겠고요. 또 토론 굉장히 시간을 맞추시느라 또 굉장히 애써주신 우리 좌장님께 여러분 다시 한번 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. Thank you all the presenters for your insightful presentation.